Hi, let's talk about array data structure. So this is the first video going into the discussion about the data structure implementation in JavaScript. So what exactly array is? So we can say that array is a collection of similar type of data. So basically we can think that this is a container where we can store our data, but the data would be of similar type and in a contiguous memory allocation. For example, we are storing a data that would be stored into the memory in a contiguous memory. Contiguous memory is like that series of memory. For example, I'm uh, storing the data at 100th location in the memory. Just suppose it's not going to be happen. Your data is always storing at the 100th position. Let's say it start your data storing at 100th position in memory. So what will be happen? You put your first element into the array that would go stored in 100 position. Next element will be on 101, 102 like that, depending on the size of that data structure is taking. So generally it takes 4 byte, maybe depend on the system dependent. We will not go more into deeper, but we have a fair enough idea of what exactly is an array. So mainly we used to store our data inside it. So let's see how could you create an array into the JavaScript. Although this is not a JavaScript specific video, but why I am teaching you this basic concept, because these will be helping out you in solving our first problem. So let's see how could you create an array. It's very simple. Using three methods we can create an array, and we have data types in JavaScript. In each language they have their own data types. In JavaScript we have let, var and const. Using these three we can create our array. So generally we create using var and const. In React, if we work, we create generally most of the time using const, but here let's we create using a var. After defining this, you have to tell the name of your array. So I am writing here my array. This is the name of my array, and simply using bracket notation you can create your first array. Now we have to put some element inside it, like 1 2 3 4 and 5. I have put 5 element inside this array. Well, remember one thing, that in JavaScript arrays are called as object. So when you will print this into the JavaScript, the type of my array, it will show you object. If you want to go in deeper of that why it is doing, you can follow on internet a lot of articles which will be explaining you about this. So we have created our first array here. Now let me tell you that there are two types. Generally in languages we have two types. One is static and another one is dynamic. So these are the two types using which we can create our array. Now, what exactly is static and what exactly is dynamic? In JavaScript, mostly we follow dynamic structure. So let me explain you a bit about this. Like you have worked with C and C++, in that we have to specify the size of the array. Here we have created this dynamic array. We have not specified what exactly the size of the array will be. While execution of the program, the size may be increase or maybe decrease. So that's a dynamic. According to JavaScript, it's create almost double of the size of the array you have initialized. For example, we have 5 element here. It has allocated 10 element space into the memory for my array. Well, so this makes it dynamic. If we talk about C++, in that we have done something like this. My array, obviously you have to define the name of the variable, and you can say like my array, and this will be defining size of that. I have to insert 5 element into it. So this is how you have defined into C++ or in C language. So this is an static array. We have defined the 5 element. If we will be adding 6 element, so that would not be added into that. We have to copy the whole array into the next one, or we have to increase the size of that array if we want to add that. Well, again, we will not go in more deeper into this concept because I'm expecting that you are aware of JavaScript concepts. This is, again, I'm telling you, is DSA specific course. We will be moving on that. So we have created our first array. Let's see how could we perform operation on my array. Well, before performing any operation, let's see what exactly operation we can do with an array in JavaScript. So let's say I have to print my array. Well, you are aware about this, how we can print into the JavaScript. We will be requiring a console.log, which pre-built provided by JavaScript, and I will give the name of my array. I am using Node.js to run this program, although you can use your Chrome browser to do this. If you don't know how to do this, let me explain you. So using your browser, you can run this. You need an index.html file, link your JavaScript file into that, and you can simply run. And another way is that of doing the same, debug your console, and here you can see that we are having here console, and we will be having here source file. Now into this you can create your own snippets and start working with that. So create a new snip and you can start writing your code here. Like I can create variable my array, and this will be having some element into this. So see how simple it is. You do not require any any editor to write code. You can simply code in your browser. But I'm using Node.js to run this program here. So using Node, you can use Node and your file name you can give here. So you can see that this is my array. It prints my array. So simply if I have to print the array, I will use console.log and my array. It can print this array. Now what I can do with this array? Well, if I have to check the length of this array, so how could I check that? So again, let's do console.log and my array dot length. So dot length property is provided by the JavaScript, and you can use this to check the length of your array. Now again run the program. You can see that the length of this array is 5. Why this is happening? Because so indexes are starting from 0, so we can count like 0th index, first index, second index, third index, and this is the fourth index. So starting from 0 to 4th, we have 5 elements. That's why it's showing us the 5. If I have to print an element, particular element, then what I can do with this? Again, write down console.log, and here I can do my array. I know that there exists some element into the array. I want to check that at 5th number what element exists. So the length of this array is 5. So if you write down here 5, it will gives you undefined because the indices are starting from 0. So we have only 4 indices here. 0 to 4, 5 indices we have, but last indices we have here is 4. So if you write down here 5, it will gives you an undefined. Why? Because we are having indices 0 to 4. If I do here indices number 4, so you can see that it gives us our last element, that is 5. If I do here indices number 3, so I can check, this will give me 4. This is the my index number third element. Hope you get this. Now let's say if I have to print the last element, so what I have to do? Simply we have learned that we can print the length. So if I have to print the last element, so again just write down console.log, and here I can see in the index you can say that my array dot length of -1. Why -1? Because indices will be always one lesser as it's starting from 0. So you can see that this statement will gives us the element 5, which is the last element of this array. So we have learned how can we create array, how to find out the length, how can we access an element into the array, and how can we find out the last element. These are the basic things you should remember because this will directly help you in solving the problem. Now, what are the more operation we can perform here? So the next operation we can perform here, we can find index of a particular element. Let me comment out this code so that it's do not print unnecessary things. So this is my array. If I have to find out here the index of some element, what I can do, I can just write down here my array dot index of, this is the property given by the JavaScript. Let's say I have to check the index of this element, that is 4. So what indices it should print, you can calculate 0, 1, 2 and 3. So the 4 is in third indices, so you can see that it should return us 3. Let's see what it returns. It gives us 3. So hope you are understanding these concepts. We can check the index of a particular element. Sometimes we need this, that's why I'm telling you. Well, now you can check that whether this element includes the array or not. Means here we have 2. If I have to check whether that this array is including or not, so how could we check that? So let's again do console.log, and here I can say my array dot includes, and in this I can provide the element whatever I want to check for. This will return true because 2 is in this element or in this array, because 2 is present here, that's why it's written true. Let's see. This is giving us true. Well, if I gives here 7 which is not in this array, so what it should return? Definitely false. So it is giving us the false value, right? So these are the again two operations we can perform with arrays. Very useful while solving a problem. You can directly check whether this element's array is existing or not, or the index of a particular element. Well, after that we can perform certain more operations. This is the one way we have learned of creating an array. Notice the another point. Sometimes what happened, we have to create an another array of the same size while solving the problem generally. What we can do for that, let's define variable new array. I'm just giving the name of this variable. You can give any name. So I will write down new array. So this will create a new array for me, but I want that this array length should be according to my array length. So here I can specify my array dot length, and I want to fill out this with some element. So I can use the fill property by JavaScript, and I will fill out 0. So everywhere it will create the same length of the array, and it will fill out 0 inside it. Now let's do console.log for new array. Let's see how we get. So you can see that we got the same length of the array, and all the values are filled by 0. If I write down here 1, at each place we will get 1. Later we can change this value. So this is then again operation which we can do with arrays, and this is very important while solving the problems we mostly time we use. I will show you how could you implement that in a later video. Great. So we have learned some basic operations. Now I'm telling you the most important operation which we will be generally performing on arrays. Well, these are the important and to be understand. Now let's move our array a bit downward so that you can see that what exactly we are doing. Now if I have to push an element into the array, means I have to add some element into the array. So how can I add an element into the array? That's very simple. You can simply do here my array dot push, and here you can give the element which you want to add. We are having 5, now let's give 6. So what exactly it will do, it will add 6 after this 5. Now let's print our array, that is my array, and see we got 6 at the end of the array. So this is how very easily we can put the element at the end of this array. Now what we can do, if we have to add an element at the beginning of this array, although at the end we have just insert this element into the constant amount of time, but if we add into the first place, it will take order of n time, because we have to shift all rest element by 1. So that's why we are having n element, so it will take n shift for these. That's why complexity will become O of n. That will be we learn in later about when we will be discussing about O of n complexity. Now let's see the another way in which we have to add the element at the first indices. So how could we do that? So write down here my array dot unshift and provide the element which you have to add. One is already added into that. Let's again one more one into it. So what will be this doing? This will be adding 1 again at the first place, or let's say negative of 1, so that we can understand this is added. So if I do here console.log, you can see that this is added into our array. What if I have to remove an element from the array? So if I show you that the length of the array and the element of the array, you can see that 6 is at the end. What exactly I can do if I have to remove the last element? Well, for removing the last element, I can do my array dot pop. Simply, you do not have to pass anything inside it. Just write down my array dot pop. Let's write it above the console.log so that we can see. If I run this, you can see here the 6 has been removed. Now what if I have to remove the -1? Yani ki from the index number 0, if I have to remove something, I will write down my array dot shift, and this will remove the first element from the array. See, the initial array we have got, we added the element at the beginning, at the end, and we have removed those two elements from the beginning and the from end. So see, these basic operation we can do with array, and these are the most important because we are generally working with these operation while solving a problem. We can do another two more operation which are again helpful for solving a problem. So let's say from this array I have to get a series of number. What I can do from the middle? So what I can do, and we will also see that how can I add an element into the middle of an array, which is again important. It's starting from index 0. So this is 0, index number 1. Let's say we pick index number 1, and from the index number 1, 2 and 3, I want to print these three elements. So what I exactly can do? For that we have a slice method, but that method will return a new array. So let's store that into another array so that we can get that easily. Let new array, and here I will do my array dot slice, and here I have to specify that from where it should start reading. So it should start from the 1, and I need second element, third element also. So I will give 4 here. Why 1 more? Because it will never return the last one. That's why it will return from index number 1 to index number 3. Let's see what this gives. Console.log the new array also. So it should return 2, 3 and 4. You can see that this is the initial array. From this we have got here 2, 3 and 4. How simple it is, na? One more operation is remaining on that array, which is important. What exactly if I have to push in between this array? That's again very simple. We can do here my array dot splice. Remember the spellings here. This is splice and this was slice. Okay. So splice, what it will do, it will say that okay, gives me the parameter and I will add. So here I want to add, let's say, negative of 2 before this 2, so which will be index number 1. I said that at index number 1, do not remove any element, that's why 0 means you do not have to remove any element, but at index number 1 you have to add, and then gives what element you want to add, negative of 2. So what will be the array look like? 1, negative 2, then 2, and the rest of the element. Let's see how this is looking. You can see that at index number 1 we are getting negative of 2 and no element has been removed. But what sometime if I have to do here ki, okay, you had the some element but at the place of another element. So at the element number 2 or index number 1, I have to insert an another element. Let's say I have to insert negative 3 at this place, so I can remove easily. I said that at index number 1, remove this element and at this place you add negative of 3. So let's see how this works. You can see that negative 2 or 2 has been removed because negative 2 was being added earlier and I have changed the condition, that's why that was not existing. So 2 was in the array and at this place I have removed this 2 and added negative 3 at this place. Similarly, we can remove more than this element. Let's make copy this again so that it's not confuse you. Remember, this is the array which we have now. Now what I want key, you remove now 3 element from this and add 1 element at all those places. So just remove 3 elements and add negative of 4 at the place of these elements. So let's see how the array will be look like. It removes these 3 elements and added a negative 4 at the place of that. See how simple it is to perform operations on arrays. So these are the basic operations which we can perform on arrays. These will be helping out you in solving the problems. You don't need to be learn much deeper for solving a problem, but for a better understanding of the language, you can follow many documentation. I will provide you the link of those documentation below. Thanks for giving your time. In next video, we will be seeing objects, which is another an important topic to solve problems.